This woman paid $100 to have her husband murdered. Her name's Kathy Scott, and she's about to make the worst financial decision of her life. Kathy's 37 years old. She's just your average suburban lab tech living in Texas with 2 cats and a brand new marriage. But here's the thing about Kathy. She's got this problem. She's impatient as hell, and she wants what she wants when she wants it. Like, this woman once burned down her own kitchen just to spite her husband. I'm not making that up. See, Kathy had just married her boss a few months earlier. Smart move, right? Older guy, decent money, life insurance policy. But now she's sitting there doing the math and thinking, if this dude dies, I get $250,000 in life insurance plus all his property. And Kathy's the type of person who sees a problem and immediately jumps to the most extreme solution possible. But one day in 1989, Kathy decides she's done waiting around. She's going to solve her husband problem the old-fashioned way by hiring someone to unalive him. Now, the guy she's about to meet in this bowling alley parking lot, you see, his name is Gary Johnson. He's 42 years old, living in Houston, and honestly, bro, probably the most unlikely hitman you've ever seen. This dude teaches evening psychology classes at a local community college. He spends his weekends tending to a goldfish pond and reading Gandhi quotes about nonviolence and peace. But here's Gary's problem. He's stuck behind a desk at the Harris County District Attorney's office, doing paperwork all day, and he's frustrated as hell. Gary originally wanted to be a therapist with a PhD in psychology, but when the university rejected him, he ended up in law enforcement instead. So he's basically this wannabe academic who knows how people's minds work but has never done anything exciting with it. Until one day in 1989, Gary's boss comes up to him and basically goes, "Gary, you're our new hitman." Just like that. Boom. See, what happened was the police got a tip about this woman, our girl Kathy, trying to hire someone to unalive her husband, and they needed an undercover guy fast. Gary's supervisor looks around the office and literally points at him like, "You, psychology guy, you understand people, right?" And Gary's sitting there like, "Wait, what? I've never done undercover work. I've never even gotten a speeding ticket." But his boss is like, "Exactly, that's what makes you perfect. You don't look like a cop," which fair point. So here's Gary, this bookish investigator who's been dreaming of doing something meaningful with his psychology training. And suddenly he's got this chance to actually get inside people's heads in the most twisted way possible. Gary puts on some ripped jeans and a skull necklace and becomes this biker dude named Mike Kane. And he's probably shitting his pants because he has no idea what he's doing. So there they are. Kathy Scott with her big 80s hair and her murder plot, sitting across from Gary Mike Kane Johnson in a bowling alley parking lot. And something clicks for Gary. Kathy slides into his car, nervous but determined. She hands him a Polaroid photo of her husband and she's like, "I want this guy gone." Now, Gary's heart is probably pounding, but he realizes his psychology training is kicking in. Instead of acting tough like some movie hitman, he just listens. He nods. He asks gentle questions like he's her therapist. "Are you sure about this?" Gary asks. And Kathy starts opening up like she's in therapy. She complains about her husband, talks about the money, even suggests they make it look like a drug hit in a black neighborhood so nobody will suspect her. Gary's sitting there thinking, holy shit, she's actually serious about this. But he keeps his cool and finally asks the magic question, "Are you sure you want this sucker killed?" And Kathy just looks at him and goes, "Yeah, bingo." That's what Gary needed her to say on tape. Suddenly, boom, police cruisers come flying into this bowling alley parking lot with lights flashing everywhere. Kathy gets arrested right there next to the bowling pins like it's some kind of twisted movie scene. And Gary's sitting in his car afterwards, probably shake because he just realized he's really good at this. He got this woman to confess to murder just by being a good listener. His psychology training turned him into the perfect fake killer. Kathy ends up getting 80 years in prison, 80, for basically handing a stranger a $100 bill and a Polaroid. Gary later said that moment changed everything for him because he realized these aren't hardened criminals. These are just regular people who snap. But here's the thing Gary doesn't know yet. This Kathy situation, it wasn't just a fluke. His phone is about to start ringing off the hook. And guess what happens next? Gary's got this black phone by his bed now, and the police keep calling like, "We've got something for you, a new client." And Gary discovers he's accidentally found his calling. He's not just some desk jockey anymore. He's saving lives by catching would-be killers before they find a real hitman. And here's where Gary's psychology training really kicks in. He realizes he doesn't need to be some tough guy from the movies. Instead, he figures out what each client thinks a hitman should look like, and then he becomes exactly that person. For rich people, he puts on a suit and becomes this smooth operator named Chris Buck, who talks about Swiss bank accounts. For redneck types, he throws on a baseball cap and becomes this good old boy. For wannabe gangsters, he puts on leather and pretends to be some ex-KGB dude with a thick accent. And bro is meeting these people everywhere. Hotel lobbies, dingy motels, Denny's booths. He's figured out that if you act casual about murder, like it's just another Tuesday, people trust you more. But it gets even more insane because these people are wild. One teenager tries to pay him with Atari video games and $5. A church-going grandma hits on him while asking him to unalive her husband. A police officer tries to hire him to kill his ex-wife, not knowing Gary's also a cop. But here's where it gets really dark. Gary meets this guy, Bobby, who wants his wife and 9-month-old baby unalive for insurance money. Bobby tells Gary, "I'm just a greedy son of a." That's all it boils down to. When Gary asks about the baby, Bobby goes, he'll sleep through the whole thing. Gary later said that was the closest he ever came to breaking character and just throttling somebody right there, because after years of this work, Gary's starting to realize he's seeing the absolute worst of human nature. These aren't mob bosses or serial killers. These are PTA moms, school teachers, businessmen, and grandmas who think murder is just another service you can hire. By now, Gary's caught more than 70 people. And all this darkness is taking a serious toll. Gary later said he only trusts dead people and enemies because at least he knows where they stand. After hearing so many people casually discuss murder, he's become paranoid about everyone around him. But then, in 2001, everything changes because this journalist named Skip writes this huge article in Texas Monthly called Hitman that exposes Gary's whole double life. The article describes Gary as this quiet guy who waters his garden and quotes Gandhi, while secretly being Houston's most successful fake contract killer. Suddenly, everyone knows his face and his story. Gary's probably thinking his career is over. But here's the crazy part. Even after his face is in magazines, people still keep trying to hire him. The phone keeps ringing because apparently people who want to commit murder don't read Texas Monthly. But then there was one call that was different. This young woman was asking around for someone to delete her abusive boyfriend. Gary looks into her story and realizes she's telling the truth. She's covered in bruises and genuinely terrified for her life. For the first time in his career, Gary looks at someone asking for a hitman and he doesn't see a criminal. He sees a victim who's so desperate she thinks murder is her only way out. So Gary breaks his own rules. Instead of setting up a sting, he quietly helps her escape. He gets her into a women's shelter and helps her disappear to somewhere safe. When a reporter later asked him about going soft, Gary just said just this once. After a decade of pretending to be a monster, Gary never lost his humanity. He understood that sometimes justice isn't about making an arrest. Sometimes it's about showing mercy to someone who needs help instead of handcuffs. Gary retired in the early 2000s and went back to teaching full-time. The work had changed him, made him more cynical, more isolated, but he believed he'd done something important. He'd prevented dozens of murders by intercepting people before they found a real killer. Gary died in 2022 at age 75, quietly, just like he lived most of his life. So this frustrated academic who just wanted to understand how people's minds work ended up becoming Houston's secret weapon against murder plots. All because his boss pointed at him one day and said, "You're our new hitman." That is wild. For more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and check out this one about how one man became a millionaire by pretending to be a professional athlete for 26 years. It's crazy.